Story 1. I have been to the strip club 3 times now. Each time I had over $1,000 in my pocket, and it went by quickly. Story 2. Lending someone a lot of money that I knew I would probably never be paid back. I don't fully regret it because it was family, but I could really use the money right now. Story 3. I bought a membership to Massage Envy when I was going through military training. I forgot to cancel it before I shipped off to Okinawa, Japan, and was charged $500 before I realized that the $75 a month was going toward the membership. Story 4. $16,000 gambling on a cruise during a bachelor trip. I was a raging alcoholic at the time and a complete jerk with disregard for anything. Story 5. Thousands of dollars in tools that I do not use, just in case I decide to do something that requires them. Story 6. I had $1,000 cash in my pocket from buying and selling cars that day, and somehow threw it in the trash when I got home. I habitually keep my pockets clean and pick up interior trash on road trips so I don't have wrappers and trash all over my car. Unthinking, I emptied my pockets of road snack wrappers, Coca-Cola bottle tops, and 10 crisp $100 bills. My wife was sure that's what happened. I wasn't so sure. She is usually squeamish about refuse, but she dove into the kitchen trash bag to find the cash, and she was right, it was there. Other than that, I probably bought that car that day. I paid peak COVID-19 prices for a nice running classic Project W123 Mercedes-Benz. I paid about right for the market at the time, around $6,000, but that market cooled quickly when things started opening up again. My $6,000 initial investment and $4,000 in parts and repairs is probably worth $3,500 if I got a fair offer today. Story 7. There was a pop-up cafe in Anaheim for a game my daughter was obsessed with, so I surprised her with a weekend trip there. I arranged flights, a motel, and a rental car so my daughter could enjoy an Amori-themed tea and waffle. Story 8. Get rich quick schemes. Now I just try to make a little bit more money every month, and it is making a huge difference. Story 9. I spent my summer job earnings in 1999 to buy a CD burner. That fall, I went to college and learned you could just download songs on Napster. $500 was a large amount of money for me back then. Story 10. DoorDash. Just go get the food yourself. I am so mad I wasted so much money already. Story 11. 3 years of wasting my time and money on my then-girlfriend. I knew she was toxic and unstable, yet I went all in. In total, maybe $8,000 or $9,000. Story 12. Imported a mini cotton processing machine to a developing country. It cost $1,500 to buy and ship it to me. Another $2,500 was required to ship it to my immigration country. With all the fees and transport, it was about $5,000. I just left it there. I fail at life. Story 13. Bought a Nintendo Wii U. Pure impulse purchase. I played a couple of games of Super Smash Bros., got bored, and never touched it again. Story 14. Being more than fair in splitting finances for our divorce. A lot of that money went into her latest lover's business and accommodation, also financing his leaving her. Story 15. eBay scammed me and took $2,000. eBay and PayPal did nothing to help. I will never do business with either company again. Story 16. FIFA Ultimate Team Packs. I must have spent about £800. It was over 10 years ago now, and I still cringe when I think about it. Story 17. Spent money on gacha games, probably around $7,000 to $8,000 over 2 years. Could have bought a powerful personal computer with that amount. Story 18. I have never wasted a large amount of money, but a few things have taken a noticeable and very irritating chunk of change. The most recent was changing cell phone providers just under a year ago. We needed to because we moved to a different state, and our provider of over 20 years had almost no coverage there. The staff at the new store added many unnecessary extras, continuously saying, "It's part of the plan," when it was not. Every extra increased my bill. We canceled all the extras almost immediately, but our first bill was still very large. The previous waste of money was also with our former cell phone provider, about 2 years before the most recent event. They lied to us, and I spent a great deal of time and effort canceling services and securing refunds. Cell phones are a vital part of modern life, but many companies are quite unethical when dealing with customers. Story 19. I put my entire fortune in cryptocurrency in November 2021. I got sick of losing, so I sold it 6 months later. I only recovered $9,000 out of my original $43,000 investment. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Also, do not check your account too often, or you will have more opportunities to regret your decisions. Story 20. I have probably spent around $4,000 to $5,000 on Bet365, lost $1,000 to $2,000 in the stock market, and spent $25,000 on a master's degree I am still trying to make sense of. There is more, honestly, but I keep telling myself it is all part of the journey. One day it will pay off, maybe even reaching billionaire status. Story 21. Buying a box of steaks from a door-to-door salesman. He was offering the box for $300. I started to shut the door. Then I said, $150? And don't say anything. He sighed and said, deal. I thought it was a good deal to myself. But they were gross. Despite having a lot of steaks, they were like half-inch slices of meat with a lot of water and folded when grilled. I did not even want to feed them to my dog. I threw them away. Story 22. I bought a car from Facebook Marketplace without checking the vehicle history report. The title was fake, and I lost $20,000 in cash. The vehicle history report showed it was stolen from New Jersey 3 days prior. Paying $39.99 could have saved me $20,000. Story 23. 5 big bags at Bath & Body Works. Spent $300. But then again, it was Christmas gifts. 1 bag for each of my family members. Story 24. On the flip side, the dumbest way I almost wasted a bunch of money was when I was considering buying a sugar glider from some breeders at a local flea market. My car then needed repair work, so I used the money for that instead. Story 25. Went to Las Vegas thinking I knew how to play craps. I won $2,000 right away, then lost $10,000 the next day. No, that cured me well. Story 26. Back in 2008 or 2009, I went on one of those rent-to-own plans for my 40-inch LCD television and Blu-ray player. I still use that television to this day, mainly because I overpaid so much for it. It also still works, and it is a basic television, so I do not have the smart television bloatware with it, as that did not exist back then. Story 27. I bought a show bike, ridden it 4 times, and now it sits and rusts. In my defense, it is built for someone 6 feet 4 inches and taller, and I am in the San Francisco Bay Area. The drivers here are scary. Story 28. Pokemon cards, Pokemon Go, and in-game microtransactions, specifically in Overwatch and Valorant. Story 29. Spearmint Rhino. Every time she asked, do you want me to keep going? It was another $20 when I said yes. $560. I didn't have the cash, so I used a credit card, and they charged like 15 or 20% because it was about $700 at that point. Friends started calling me Fortune 500. It was my first time at a strip club. Story 30. Bought an expensive motorcycle riding jacket as I was doing a lot of long rides. It was a costly purchase for me. I bought a car the following month. I used it only once after that. Story 31. Saltwater aquariums brought me peace. Next would be bad stock picks, but they at least had the chance to make me rich. Story 32. Buying a house only to spend more money on repairs, then having other things break and need fixing. Story 33. Bought photo books with hundreds of pages of my favorite Korean idol pictures. Some of the pictures were exclusive. Story 34. I bought a headset to fix an issue with my old headphones, only to realize that it was not a headset issue, but a Bluetooth driver issue. Unfortunately, it was too late to return it. I wasted $250. Story 35. Not large but dumb. I once purchased some peanut seeds to grow at home. I got home, opened the packet of seeds, and smacked my forehead. Story 36. Buying Gazprom stocks just before Russia invaded Ukraine. The stocks fell by approximately 95%. I am still holding them in case they recover. Story 37. Put $20,000 in a Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation insured health savings account with Yada. Yada changed the terms to make the accounts no longer Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation insured by partnering with a non-bank to hold the money. Unfortunately, the non-bank stole the money, and Yada says everyone is out of luck. Story 38. I bought myself a convertible two-seater for me and my then 9-year-old daughter to drive around in. My ex-husband was the one who drove us farther away. I found out I was pregnant 2 months later, and I had to sell it. I lost so much money. I ended up with the biggest family car ever. I was very angry. Story 39. Eating steaks at restaurants almost daily for over a year. The "you only live once" attitude probably cost me approximately $14,000. Story 40. I bought an $800 Apple Watch. It does not look great, does not do much my phone does not already do, and you have to charge it every other day. If someone back in the 1980s asked me if I would pay a premium price for a watch I would have to charge every other day, I would have laughed in their face. Story 41. Bought a high-performance Audi text-to-speech system. I didn't even get it new, but after 2 years, I have lost a solid $15,000 from depreciation alone and another $5,000 in repairs. Would probably do it again though. It is fun. Story 42. Falling for a Tinder scam. I really should have stopped after the first couple of $100 I sent, but I was really struggling. Story 43. $70 on Tears of the Kingdom, a trashy downloadable content that was as empty as the prequel. I never regretted buying something until I did with that. Story 44. I invested $400 in my friend's plan to sell marijuana. They smoked it all, except I think they spent my money on oxycodone. It was a cheap way to get him out of my life. Story 45. Bought a classic truck to have a simple engine swap. 10 years later, the frame was rebuilt and everything had to be redone. We still do not have the truck back. Story 46. Put it in my offset and worked on it. 18 months later and $60,000 gone on unnecessary expenses. I got down to $1,800 before I realized I needed to be smarter with my money. Story 47. My first house was a bad investment. I put $12,000 into it and lost $8,000 on the sale due to bad timing. If I had waited another year, I would have made money. However, I needed to move to get my children into a better school area. Story 48. GameStop stock and Robinhood closed trading. For Robinhood, if they could not cover the trades, they should have gone under. Story 49. Signed up for a premium language application, told myself I would become fluent, and now it just guilt trips me with weekly "we miss you" emails. At least the gym membership people do not pretend to care. Story 50. Bought concert tickets during a breakup thinking I would be healed by then. Spoiler, I was not, and I did not even go. Story 51. Man, I feel that gym membership deep in my soul. Paid for a whole year just to perfect the art of guilt-ridden Netflix binges. At least with college or gambling, you get something out of it, even if it is just trauma or regret. But throwing money at a treadmill I never touched? That is next-level self-sabotage. Story 52. Bought a full bag of 4 ounces of gold flake off eBay when I was about 16. It was advertised as 18-karat gold. I had it tested at a jeweler. It dissolved. Not real gold. Probably scraped off old audio cables or something similar. The seller refused to issue a refund. I wrote a scathing review about taking advantage of a minor, and he could not delete it. He closed his eBay store a few weeks later, probably to open again under a new name, but whatever. That person was dishonest. Story 53. I bought a car for my father. My father is not a successful businessman, which is why he is always in debt. One day, I was at home on a day off, and it was raining heavily outside. My father had to deliver some children's clothes to customers. He carried these goods on his back and tried his best to catch a bus, but there were no buses available. So my mother asked me to buy a car for their business. Actually, I had saved some money for their social insurance. I know everyone gets old. It cost 9,000 Chinese yuan to buy a car in 2016, but we sold it in 2020 for only 2,000 Chinese yuan because my parents finally ended their business and took out a large loan. Story 54, way too late for this, so no one will ever see it, but whatever. I've always kept a stash of hard cash in my house for emergencies. Under the mattress, in a book, wherever. One birthday, I wanted to dress up and look really nice. Suit, tie, the works. My girlfriend put on a mink coat that is almost never worn. We were at the bar, and my girlfriend looked down and said, "Oh my God, there's money on the floor." We found $1,000, 10 $100 bills just sitting there. A huge windfall on my birthday. We spent it all. I had never had Johnny Walker Blue before. $50 a shot. We ordered 6. Bought drinks for everyone. Food for the crew after the bars closed. It was a great night. The next morning, I was like, okay, $300 left from our score. I know. I'll put it with the other cash I stashed away, which was hidden in the closet in the pocket of a coat that never gets worn. It turns out I had momentarily forgotten I had stashed $1,300 in the pocket of that mink coat specifically because I believed it would be undisturbed indefinitely. I didn't connect the dots when we found the roll on the ground. Anyway, there was $300 still in the pocket the next morning, so it confirmed that $1,000 fell out, and it was my own money I had spent. I turned a once-in-a-lifetime night into a freak. Story 55. I made a decision to allow an employee to drop something off on their way home, and they would text me to clock them out once they had done so. My company is very aware of liability these days, as most are. The employee's vehicle was backed into by an 80-year-old driver, so I had to report it up the chain. Now I make around $15,000 less per year and am no longer in management. Story 56. Bought a treadmill for $1,200 thinking it would motivate me to work out at home. Used it exactly 4 times before it became the world's most expensive clothes hanger. Story 57. Buying call and put options at the top. I knew absolutely nothing about the stock market. I lost about $8,000 in the span of 3 months. 5 years later, I am now able to generate a small monthly income from selling cash-secured puts and covered calls. It was an expensive lesson. For anyone thinking of gambling in the market, open a Charles Schwab account and put $1 in it. Then use Thinkorswim's paper trading platform. Learn how the market works and practice for a year in your paper account. I wish someone had told me that 5 years ago. Story 58. My manipulative ex. I had over $10,000 in the bank, but she had gone back to school, so I paid for everything. Rent, bills, car, insurance, and groceries. God, I was such a fool then. Story 59. Cars. Not that they were luxury cars, I just bought some cars in the past that in reality were a waste of money compared to the value I got. Especially considering I don't drive much. Story 60. How much time do you have? I bought a Porsche Panamera that spent 6 weeks a year for 4 years in the shop. I always had loaner vehicles, but imagine making payments on a car you cannot drive. Story 61. Above-ground swimming pool at the height of COVID-19. $300 and never really used it after everything reopened after 2 months. Story 62. Bought a car and got fired about a month or 2 later. I took a significant loss settling that car loan. It was a really good deal with both the car and the low interest. Story 63. Moving in with someone who was unemployed was the worst financial decision I have ever made. Luckily, my credit has recovered and continues to improve. I have since promised myself I will never compromise my financial well-being out of guilt for someone else again. Story 64. I received a student loan refund of about $2,500 in 2010. I bought 2 Memphis 15-inch speakers in a custom box and the whole package for huge bass. I hooked it up myself. It caught fire after the first song. Everything was ruined. Story 65. I sent someone from Craigslist $950 to ship me a set of vintage base set Pokemon booster packs. He did not send them. I was careless. Please do not do this. Story 66. 5 years of college spent as a weed burnout. I spent nearly all of my savings on it, about $500 a month on weed alone during those 5 years. I regret everything. Weed did absolutely nothing for me. It was supposed to fix your anxiety, but it only made me more paranoid. It took me that long to realize it because I was, and still am partially, self-destructive. I'm still pro-marijuana, don't get me wrong. It just does nothing for me. Plus, I promise myself I will never smoke or use edibles again. This is more of a personal decision. Story 67. When I was 8, I spent around $3,500 on Clash of Clans gems using my mother's credit card. I deleted the game out of worry that I would get caught. I did not verify the account with an email, so I lost everything. My mother was still charged the money and punished me. Story 68. I was so convinced by the GameStop stock shenanigans. I do not know what was going through my head. I thought it was basically going to be a Robin Hood scenario where all the wealth in these big firms was going to be evenly distributed to the masses because they made a mistake on a short. I blame COVID brain. In hindsight, it was painfully obvious that if you did not get in on the first wave before it went public, it was not going to be profitable. Story 69. Not a large amount of money, but a long time ago I went to a drive-up automated teller machine where I inserted my card and selected to withdraw money. The automated teller machine then gave me back my card, and I drove off before it dispensed the money. Story 70. Buying a contrabass trombone as someone who is not a professional musician and never will be. At least the money does not lose value if left alone. Story 71. Donating to unqualified candidates like Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton, two individuals who had every advantage in running against Donald Trump yet did not win. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.